Hey everyone, welcome to this week's live session of Freedom Builder Bootcamp Q&A. I'm joined by my co-host Rolando. What's up, Rolando?
Hey Greg, how's it going, Freedom Builders?
Good to see you all, and Rolando, happy to have you joining me. So you guys know how this works by now. Drop your questions in the chat box, and Rolando and I will answer them over the course of the next hour. Rolando, are there any comments already in the question box that we can answer while we wait?
Yeah, I actually have quite a few already. So we'll start off with Vanessa. Earlier, she commented and asked the question: suggestions on websites for finding suppliers not in China. Right off the top of my head, I can think of a couple. Possibly, what one would be globalsources.com. That would be another option. ThomasNet is another option that's a viable option to look for manufacturers. Now, ThomasNet, I believe, works with manufacturers within the U.S. So just kind of look around, browse around. I would say those sites would be some options. Do you happen to have any other recommendations, Greg?
Just the supplier database. I think I talked about that in the Freedom Builder Bootcamp, but I'll show you guys real quick. One cool thing about it is let's pretend I'm doing my yard signs again. After typing it in, what I can do is I can go here to the drop down for country of origin, and I can deselect China, apply that filter, and now these are all the ones that match my search who are not in China. So that's a pretty cool way to find suppliers not in China. What else we have?
All right. Vanessa asks another question. What happens if the seller of one product is also the supplier of it? Would you allow white labeling? Would I be able to improve the product or compete against his listing?
Yeah, I can take that. If the seller is also the supplier, oftentimes they'll still sell to you. They are, I guess, happy to get business, even if that is oftentimes someone who competes with them. They would likely still allow you to improve the product. Just ask them and see if they'd be willing to do so. And yes, you would be creating a new listing and competing against it. I wouldn't recommend trying to order their product with the same UPC on it, because then you'd be selling on their listing and they probably wouldn't be cool with that.
All right. Douglas has the next question. He's asking, could Jungle Scout's buy box alert or new seller alert be used to notify me of the hijacking of my private label product, since I would not be expecting to share my listing in any way, or is that not how they work?
Yeah, I'll pull this up right here. I have it pulled up. If you go inside of Jungle Scout's alert settings, so to get there, just go to alerts and click alert settings here in the top right. Scroll down, and there's two things that notify you that. One is when the buy box owner changes, so that would mean there's someone else who is controlling the buy box, or when there's a new seller. So I have both of those items checked. You can see right here and right here I have it checked. So it's sending me emails when there is either a change of the buy box or a new seller on the listing.
All right. There was some, it looks like Christopher dropped some questions in the page earlier. So I'll go ahead and read that one off. It's first one, if I make a purchase order based on supplier FCL quote, full container load, do I ship by pallet, box, crate, or container? My product with packaging is about the size of a shoebox, and I'll be ordering 500 units.
If you have a full container load, you can actually do something called a floor loaded container, and speak to your freight forwarder about this. They should know what it is. And how a floor loaded container works is so the supplier is the one who fills the container with all the products. They close up the container, it gets put on a boat, shipped over to the US or wherever it's going to. And then instead of going to a freight forwarder's warehouse to be put onto pallets, they just send the container directly to Amazon's distribution centers, and they unload your product directly out of the container. So that's called a floor loaded container, and that's what we would recommend if you have a full container load, because that way, A, you don't have to pay for your goods to be repalletized, and B, it's actually like a little bit safer for your good. Like, it's less likely that they get damaged if you do a floor loaded container, since there's just less hands moving them around.
And then the last one that from him, from the page was, why is my supplier offering a lower quote for full container load and a higher quote for less than container load? And that's not uncommon. It actually, so there's nothing sketchy about this. Oftentimes with less than container load, they're either basing it on weight or the amount of space that's being taken in the container. So that's why sometimes you can actually get a better deal with a full container load. If, of course, you have enough quantity to fill that up, then it may be worthwhile.
Cool.
All right.
Jacobus said in the live chat, I'm excited. Past Sunday, I made my first Amazon sale. The customer bought 2 products on my listing before they were optimized and before running any campaign. Congratulations. That's awesome. I think you're the first one in the Freedom Builder Bootcamp. Yeah, you're the first sale that came from the Freedom Builder Bootcamp. Congratulations. Kathy said, on Jungle Scout emails campaigns, I chose the second option, then chose receive a test email. I've been able to get back to correct that. Let me show you where it's at. So what you do is you go into launch and then email campaigns. You should see your email campaigns right here. Click on whichever one it is that you created. And then it should take you to this page. It's the third one, build campaign, and click on the orange dot that says email, okay? So once I click on that, I see this pop up. And I think this is exactly what you're talking about. Thank you, store or brand name. You just want to delete that and replace it with, Kathy's Goods, or whatever your store name is. And you could save it, and that's how you change the email.
All right. Rob's got the next question. What are your thoughts on creating a trademark name that is niche specific, but selling random items? Or do you suggest to choose a generic name? I personally like to go with generic names just because there may be varying products that I'll be launching and they might not identify as far as what the niche is. So I would say being more generic is probably the safer route, especially since you're paying for that trademark. You wouldn't want to have to pay for another trademark down the road. And then if it's something that's just not niche related. All right.
Cool. The next one is from Sivan. They said, hey guys, just launched coupons on Jumpstone. I set for 5 a day, but already got 17 requests, which I manually approved beyond the automatic 5 allowed. Is this cool or should I let the extras requests wait for a day? This is fine, but moving forward, I would probably wait and spaced out for like maybe 5 or 10 units per day. 17 per day is not a big deal, but it's usually more effective if the sales come over a number of days as opposed to like a big burst kind of all the way at the beginning.
All right, Kathy has the next question. She's asking, if my supplier will ship my product to a US port and then it is up to me to get it to Amazon, how do I find someone to palletize it for me? Typically, so are you dealing with a freight forwarder, or is this something that you said your supplier is the one that will ship the product to the US port? There's typically like a third-party logistics company that you would need to hire to do that. It is something that it would require kind of like an intermediary in between there once it arrives to be able to palletize it, because typically they don't ship palletized, and so that's why it would be important to be able to find one of these third-party logistics companies that deals with that and can palletize it for you. And then you could use one of Amazon's preferred type of shipments and get a discounted rate through Amazon. So that would be kind of the process. You would need to get that third-party logistics site.
Yeah, and Kathy, usually people, that's obviously one option what Rolando just gave. Like what most people do though is they just hire a freight forwarder and the freight forwarder handles all that for them. So by using like the supplier to ship it, you still have to go out and find someone to hire, but then it's like, it feels like you're just working with like a few more parties, or maybe that gets like a little bit more complicated. So I personally would recommend still just hiring a freight forwarder and having them handle the palletization. But alternatively, you could hire a 3PL like Rolando was talking about and have them do it. All right, the next one Is it possible to see the buy box history of a particular product on Jungle Scout? No, it's not. Unless I'm forgetting about anything. No, it's not.
All right, looks like you're out of questions.
Actually, I was just thinking, inside the product tracker, it does notify you when there's a seller change, so someone else controls the buy box, but it doesn't necessarily tell you like who the seller was or like how long they controlled it. But there is a little annotation. Here, I'll show you. There is a little annotation in there. See, like on this day right here, there's a blue thing at the bottom of the tooltip that says seller change. Out of questions already. Oh no, we got another one.
Yeah, one just popped in.
Take it away.
Christopher asks, on Freightos, shipping by container is much more expensive than shipping by box pallet. Do I still make a purchase order from supplier based on full container load quote?
You know, yes, like shipping a quarter of a container or half a container is going to be less expensive than shipping a full container. Once you get up to though, like 2/3 or 3/4 of a container, the price usually works out to be the same of a full container load versus a less than container load. So to directly answer your question, Christopher, I would recommend figuring out roughly how much volume it would be that you're shipping, and then ask for the quote for that specific volume, not necessarily a full container load, not necessarily less than container load.
All right. Rob asks, what aspects of your business do you guys personally outsource? I can start by saying one of the areas that I can outsource with fairly good confidence is PPC. Now, I also recommend that you do learn it so that you can also determine if, in fact, the company or the person that you hired to manage your PPC campaigns is actually, it works out for your business, right? That they're actually not just spending your money and that you're profiting from these campaigns. So I think PPC is one of those areas that you can. I don't know what would you recommend on that one, Greg?
Other ones that people typically outsource are things like packaging design, oftentimes photography, maybe the copywriting or the sales copy for your listing. Those would be the most common ones, or the ones that maybe like I would kind of recommend the most. I wouldn't recommend things like product research. I wouldn't recommend, like working with your factories, at least not up front. What else? I wouldn't recommend putting someone else in charge of like your inventory and replenishments. Those are all things that are like really critical to business. I think it's important for you to understand.
All right. And Jacobus asks, Greg Rolando, please see if this type of image with inserts will suffice in your opinion. Specifically, look at the images for the leopard eyes design. Note that I inserted the image of that item I am selling on the image of another variation of the same product in the following listing. So let's see here.
Yeah, I can pull it up. So, all right, and I assume it's okay to share because you shared it in the public chat box. But let's see, you said specifically look at the images for the leopard eye designs. Note that I inserted the image for the item that I am selling on the image of another variation of the same product. I think I understand what you're saying. Like you're saying that you put the, let's see. Actually, I don't really understand what the question is here. Do you understand, Rolando? Or should we just ask him to clarify?
Yeah, probably need a little clarification because saying like the insert, I think is what he wants to know if the insert would be fine. But
well, I see like these inserts in the top right of the third image. Then I guess I also see these down at the bottom of the first. I like these down at the bottom of the first, but I don't think that they are really going to show up very well in the search results. Let's look right here. So like in the search results, when it's this size, it's pretty, they're kind of like too small to see what those other ones are. So I'd probably try to figure out some way to make them bigger, even if you only show half of it or something like that, because I do like showing the variations on the main image like that. What's the next one?
So here. Do you have any, so Ernest asks, do you have any recommendations on how to source from like Mexican manufacturers?
The only good way that I can think of to source Mexican manufacturers is just through the Jungle Scout supplier database. Like, there's not like an Alibaba for Mexico. And again, I'll just show you guys how to do this real quick. If you go to suppliers, supplier database, and what you can do is you can deselect all, find Mexico. Mexico, Mexico, where is Mexico? Anyway, you find Mexico in the list. Oh, you know what? They're not one of like the top 50, so they're actually not even in this list. Check one more time. Yeah, I think only the top 50 countries are shown in here, but we could do other, and then you could probably, you know, kind of sort through here, but that's probably a little bit cumbersome. So other than that, I don't really have any great answers for you. I mean, I think Alibaba has a filter like that too. Like auto parts are commonly manufactured in Mexico. Let's see. They don't have any from Mexico either. Oh, they export to Mexico. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any good ways for you. There's no like centralized database that I know of specifically for Mexican suppliers.
Do you believe that one site, thomasnet.com, also has suppliers from Canada and Mexico? You'll just have to do a little more, you know, there's ways to filter out information. You just have to do a little more digging through that site because they provide you all of these different suppliers. So it's probably the best that you can, the best way to approach that.
Cool. Yeah, I thought Thomasnet was just the US. That's good to know.
Yeah. And then let's see here. Sivin asks, Greg, in the video, it seems you run a paid campaign for every variation. Yet when I set up my campaign, I saw an option to add all variations to be included in one campaign. What should be the correct way to set variations up?
Yeah, so either way will work. The benefit of having separate campaigns for separate variations is that there's some keywords that work better for different variations. For example, for those baby towels, if they search girls baby towel or boys baby towel, like the pink one tends to do better for that search term girls baby towel than what any of the other colors do. And same thing for the blue one for the boy. So for those, I want them to show the variation that's most relevant for that particular search term. Other ones, just like baby towels, I just want to show them whatever one is my best selling product so that it's most likely that it will convert. So that's why I do different campaigns for different variations. That being said, to start, you could put all the variations just in one ad group and go for it that way. It's like easier to manage and optimize, but the downside is you don't quite get the granular detail like that.
All right. Rob's up next. He asks, have you guys ever sold your business? If so, how's it done? Lawyers, accountants, and so forth.
Yeah, for this type of business, there are really like 3 companies that kind of like specialize in it. They are Quiet Light, I'll pull all these up, Effie International, and Empire Flippers. So I can show these to you real quick. Effie International, if you go on here, you can do like, you know, like buy a website. It says buy a website, but actually if you go here, you'll see that there's a number of like Amazon businesses. So available, SaaS, e-commerce. Let's see. So this is an Amazon FBA business, and this one's for sale actually for $17 million. So that's a nice business. This one, Quiet Light, they do a similar thing. They, I think the businesses that they sell are typically a little bit bigger than FE International or Empire Flippers, and I've heard really good things about them. And then the last one is Empire Flippers, and same thing. Like you can go here and you can actually view the marketplace and Amazon FBA. Yeah, sorted by the highest ones, but you know, there's even businesses for sale for $22,000 or $70,000 or lower dollar amounts too. So this is actually a pretty cool thing because a lot of, I mean, it's just pretty awesome. Like you're building up this asset, this company that you can later sell, you know, even if you're only making, this one's only making $900 a month, but they're selling it for $23,000. So that's pretty cool.
All right. Let's jump on to the next question. Looks like Max is asking, let's see here. Just want to make sure I don't skip anybody. Oh, actually, I skipped over quite a few questions here.
Looks like Rob says, how much does a VA cost is by the hour or number of jobs? Just like any job, it really depends who you hire. You can get some as cheap as $2, $3, $4 an hour. But keep in mind the tasks that they'd be doing usually aren't very sophisticated and typically need a lot of like oversight or hand holding. Just like if you hire, you know, someone locally, usually higher quality talent or people doing more specialized jobs cost more money than that. So it really just depends. But yeah, I mean, you can hire people, you know, say like in the Philippines or India for just a few dollars per hour, and you can usually get someone pretty good or really good for like 10 or 20 bucks an hour.
All right. Manzer asks, hi, the UK market being smaller with less breadth, finding opportunities is more difficult. I'm an analyst. I'm analyzing total unit sales for top 10 listings from 1,500 to 1,800. How about reviews? Would you recommend around average of 75 to 95 for the top listings?
You know, I think total unit sales of 1,500 to 1,800 is solid, Manzir. Instead of me giving you like specific guidance on how many average reviews they would have, I would take all of those different opportunities that you found and see which one looks the least competitive. So like number of reviews is a good indicator of that, but it's also like, you know, how many of the listings look the exact same? What can you do to differentiate your product from the rest? How many other sellers are there selling a very similar item kind of like on the first page? You know, those are all the different things that I look at when I'm ultimately making my decision of what I want to sell.
All right. Rob asks, how soon would we say we start launching our next product?
Take it away, Rolando.
Yeah, I would say as soon as feasible. I mean, as soon as possible. You definitely don't. You want to capitalize on that momentum that you have, but definitely there's a lot of factors, right? There's a lot of moving parts that come into play where you have. You want to make sure that your listing's optimized. You want to make sure that your product launch has been successful. Then before you start moving on to the next product launch. So I would say just kind of fill it out. Once you've gotten into a rhythm. Then it's time to move on to the next product.
Cool. Max asked, how much profit should I see in Product Tracker before deciding to go with the product? What is the lowest profit after all expenses where I should drop the idea? For me, usually the minimum profit margins that I'm willing to accept are 20% margins, and that's all expenses included. That's more on a long-term basis though. Like I'm okay if I don't make any money or the margins are less than that for say the first month or first 2 months while I'm launching the product. But long-term, I want to be able to know that I can make at least 20% margins on those.
Rob asks, what happens if you consistently have a bad Amazon account health?
Yeah, Amazon can suspend your account if you consistently have bad account health. You know, I don't think that that happens to a lot of people that shows up in the brand health dashboard thing. Like people do get their account suspended, but it's usually because of like review manipulation or something like that. But if you have really bad account health, you could get suspended.
All right. Sivan asks, for the Amazon IP Accelerator, is it true that they will actually accept your brand registry way before it is actually being officially approved?
Yep, that's the whole point of the IP Accelerator. So it's cool. Someone I was just talking to last week did it. I think it only cost like $500 or $600 total, and that includes Amazon's $250 filing fee. Or sorry, not Amazon, like the patent office. So it was another like $250 or $350 on top of that. And then I think I said like 1 week after they filed the trademark, they were accepted into brand registry.
All right. Max asks, is there any way to add supplier to the supplier tracker manually? To add a supplier to the supplier tracker manually, if I can't find it in Jungle Scout supplier database, but found it on Alibaba?
Unfortunately not. The best thing to do is just to add someone else. And then what you can do is you can go in here and you can edit it. So I can go in here and I can edit it. I can change their name, change their number. It won't have the right address, but right now that's all you can do. I know it's a feature request and they're going to build it so you can like click add a new one and just manually enter it right here. But unfortunately right now that's the only kind of like workaround.
Rob asks, does the Amazon seller's name have to be the same as the trademark name? And it does not. It does not. We do not have to match. All right. Max asks, if I have two different products in the same category and they are ranked for the same keyword, if I ran PPC, would I be competing? Would I compete against myself between the two listings and increase PPC cost?
No. On Amazon, you never compete against yourself in PPC, even if it's multiple different products.
All right. Then Rob asks, is anyone else having trouble with video quality? This is so pixelated. I can't see much. I don't know. Is anybody else having any problems?
I'm watching it on Facebook too, and it looks nice and clear to me. So maybe you just have a little bit of a slow internet connection. Jacobus says, thank you. To follow up on my previous question, just to clarify, please look at the third or fifth image. The inserted image has the leopard eyes design, but the product with the props inside has the line design. Will this be a problem? In other words, is it clear that when buying this product, the buyer will receive the leopard eyes design, not the lion design? All right. So the third or fifth image, this is the lion and this is the leopard. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now. So you don't have to reshoot these images. You just want to show it right here. I would say that no, that's not clear to the buyer. And unfortunately, I think you just need to reshoot the different images with the different props inside. Alternatively, you could just do it for a couple and put them at the front. So hopefully people will click on that one first and see it has the props inside. But no, I don't think that it's clear to the customer that they're getting the leopard eyes, but you're showing the lion right here. I think that's pretty confusing.
All right. Looks like Max asks, is there any way to calculate air shipping without asking the supplier? I tried official DHL, FedEx, UPS, and they gave me super high unreal prices, which definitely are not correct. And Freightos service, as I understood, mostly should be used for sea shipping.
Isn't the rule of thumb $7 per kilogram, Rolando?
Let me
pull
that up. I have a spreadsheet here.
So, I mean, if you're talking about a really big shipment here that's quite heavy, the prices that DHL, FedEx, and UPS gave you might be correct. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't be correct. Your supply, usually there's a Chinese shipping service. I think they're Chinese, at least everyone in China uses them, called TNT. They're not very common in the US, but TNT is usually the cheapest, and that's usually who the supplier would get it through. So you can ask your supplier what the air shipping would be. But if you remember back to the shipping module, there's two different types. There's like the Air Express, and that's like your UPS and FedEx and DHL. And then there's like the air freight. Express gets there in like 2 or 3 days. Freight usually takes like 2 weeks. And to do the latter one, the freight one, you do have to hire a freight forwarder. So you can also just try to get a quote for that on Freightos.
All right. Next question comes from Jacobus. He's asking what percentage of sales can be expected to come from PPC campaigns and what percentage from organic ranking over a period of about 3 to 6 months?
This really depends a lot on what your product is. Like, I'm trying to think, man, if I were to just give you like a rough estimate, I would have to go and calculate this from the numbers, but like my gut instinct is like 25 to 50% come from PPC and the rest comes from organic. Right. Do you have anything better than that, Rolando, or do you have any idea?
No, I'd say within that range, like 50%, 25 to 50%. Typically, about 50% come from PPC. Of course, you want to make sure that you're ranking for the specific keywords. So, like you're saying, there's just a lot of different variables there. So, if you're not, depending on how high up you are for that keyword ranking, that's going to determine how many sales you're going to get. So that's why I lean a lot on PPC, especially in early days, to really help in my ranking, because it's just like I always say, you'll be on page 1 from day 1. So yeah, PPC is probably going to roughly 50% of your sales come from PPC.
Seven said, you guys are so good with data. When are you building a PPC robot integrated into Jungle Scout? Good question. I don't know for sure. This is something we'd like to do, but we haven't started on. So I don't know, maybe this summer.
All right. Jacobus is asking, while stocking up inventory for my launch, how do I estimate the amount of inventory will be enough for 2 or 3 months supply? In other words, when I run a PPC campaign with a $50 daily budget, how many units can I expect to sell per day?
The estimates that you see inside of Jungle Scout include PPC sales. Those aren't just organic sales. So keep in mind that, so the way that I go about estimating them is I just look to see how many sales there are for like the top 5 or top 10 sellers of that particular product. And that's how many I assume that I'll sell per month for the first 3 months. So you can probably assume that they're using a budget similar to what you just named. And yeah, and that's how I go about estimating it.
All right. A follow-up question by Jacobus. As a new Amazon seller, new in the industry, how much value do you think I can get from attending the White Label World Expo?
Good question. I've never attended. I am speaking at it this year, but I haven't attended it personally. In general, conferences are usually like really cool for hanging out with fellow sellers and kind of like networking and things like that. The quality of the education that you get from speakers sometimes can be hit or miss. Some of them can be really good, and some of them other times they could be like either way too basic or way too advanced for kind of like where you're at, and as a result, not real helpful. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I enjoy going to conferences, and I think in general they are pretty valuable, but it's just kind of like, what else are you comparing it to? What do you think about it, Rolando?
Yeah, I think with this particular, I would say this one is, there's other events, more conferences that you probably would want to invest in, because this is more for sourcing, and if you already have a product and you've already have a manufacturer, then maybe it's not as important to go to this event, but maybe the events that happen that are more catered towards learning more, diving deeper into selling on Amazon, that might be more useful. So just a matter of really weighing out the pros and the cons. If you're at the stage where you're still looking for a supplier, then this White Label Expo may be worthwhile. But other than that, I'd say like stick with the conferences where maybe you could learn more and on how to continue to scale and grow your business and so forth. But yeah, it's going to be an investment, so you gotta be careful with where you invest.
Max asked, is it better for ranking to create separate listings with a different brand name and UPC, or is it better just to add another variation of the existing product? I'd say if it truly is a variation, so it's like the same product in a different color or different size or something, then I would just do another variation. If it is like a different product, then I'd do a different product. So, yeah, I think it just kind of depends. Leonard Smith said, you guys are all good. The video looks good. Awesome. Thank you, Lenny. Kathy asked, the Jungle Scout extension is not showing monthly sales and it shoots up a message saying something about can't get it from Amazon. What's happening there is this usually happens in the electronics category, but if Amazon doesn't give us something called the bestseller rank, then Jungle Scout's not able to estimate the monthly sales of that item. The data science team I know is working on some workarounds for that to try to use other data points, but as of now, there's no way to estimate sales for those products. So it's not like a problem as a whole, it's not like a bug as a whole or anything like that. It's just for certain products, like I said, that are primarily in electronics, we don't get the bestseller rank.
All right, Rob asks, my supplier just told me that my goods will be shipped. Will shipped out by the end of the month. Super excited. Thank you guys. That's good news. That's awesome. Woo-hoo. Congratulations, Rob.
Because that means they're back to work, which is good.
Rob asks, okay, guys, I'll catch the replay. Oh, thanks for everything. So yeah, we'll catch the replay.
Ernest says, when using average daily and monthly units sold to evaluate whether a product is viable, how much weight do you put in their accuracy? Some products, the numbers of units sold seems unbelievable. Ernest, we did a case study. I'll just pull it up real quick to gauge the accuracy of Jungle Scout's sales estimates versus our competitors. And this was the median. We're calling it overall error percentage. So Jungle Scout on average got within 84%, or on median was 84% of correct. All right. And if you're familiar with box and whisker plots, this tells a little bit of a more thorough story. So, let's see. This is the lower bound, upper bound are 25 and 75. So between 25 and 75% of the time, it's about within 10 to negative, let's call it 15%. And then there are edge cases where it's more than that. But, the most of the time you can kind of think of it as around like plus or minus 15-ish%. So, like, are they perfect? No, not by any means, but they are accurate enough to be able to use them for like product research type decisions for sure.
All right. Max asks, in order to ungate a product category, or in order to get ungated, Amazon asks to upload photos of the product, factory location, product number. What would be the product number? Should I give my home location or the factory in China?
Since it specifically says factory location, I would give your actual factory location. As far as the product number, you can just make that up. Like, since you're technically like the manufacturer on record, you're the one that determines the product number. So it's whatever you want.
Yeah, and typically they want the photo to include your branding on it as well. They kind of have to see that the label actually represents your brand or the product that you're looking to sell.
Max says, who should I ask to label my product with Amazon barcodes, factory or freight forwarder? There's a few different type of Amazon barcodes. One is the FN SKU, and we recommend you print this directly on your packaging so you actually don't have to label it. The other two types of labels are the ones that go on the master cartons and either the outside of the pallet if it's palletized, or the outside of the box if you're sending it just like in the master cartons. All of those labels can actually be applied by your factory, and it's actually cheaper to do so because your freight forwarder is usually they will charge you to apply all those labels, whereas the factories typically do it for free. They usually don't add an extra cost for that.
All right. Looks like Max asks, in the last module, you talked about loans.
Did you
have any opinion on Alibaba Finance, which they offer when I use Alibaba Trade Assurance?
I'm not familiar with Alibaba Finance at all. So yeah, sorry, I haven't used it before. I haven't directly spoken to anyone who's used it before. Have you, Rolando?
I have not used it, but I typically, when I'm gauging loans and trying to figure this out, it's usually best to go with financing that you're familiar with, financing through firms that you're familiar with, banks that you're familiar with, versus something that is going to be a partnership that Alibaba has. So I would say just go direct and make your inquiries with banks direct rather than going through Alibaba. That would just be my personal take.
Rob said the router reset fixed his video. Great, happy to hear that. Max says, hey guys, Jungle Scout released the State of the Amazon Seller 2020 today. Thank you very much. Just wondering, how accurate is the data? Are you working straight with Amazon to get in the data or some publicly available info? Jungle Scout ran a survey. I think it says it somewhere in there, but I think it's like 1,200 people or maybe 2,000 people or something that filled out this survey, and that's where all the data's at. So how accurate is it? I don't know what the accuracy is of a survey of 1,200 people, but it's pretty statistically significant with that many people.
Yeah, it's a good sampling. Definitely a good sampling.
Out of questions.
Yeah.
We still have another 10 minutes or so, guys, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and we will get them answered.
Let me hop over and see if there's any in the feed itself to see that we can answer here.
Sure. And this week, the final module 10 is being released, which is the Advanced Seller Strategies. I talk about some cool stuff in there, like A/B testing your images and price, as well as A/B testing your A+ content, and a couple other little things inside of the Advanced Seller Strategies. The content in that module is more so for people who have already launched, they've already kind of figured out PPC, now they're looking to kind of get to the next level. So don't get overwhelmed with any of that information in that module because it's not a requirement, more so just kind of like a nice to have, and we want to continue to provide you all with value.
All right, there was a question here earlier, and this has come up in the past, but I guess it's worth repeating. Boudica asked, hello to everyone. Is anybody worried or afraid to contact suppliers from China because of the coronavirus? What would you say to that, Greg?
Afraid to order stuff from China because of the coronavirus?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not afraid of it spreading on the products that I'd be ordering from China, so absolutely no concerns there. The only concerns would be around, are the factory workers going to be, are they not going to be able to get back to the factory very soon and that type of thing. But from what I can tell, it looks like a number of the factories have started back up. They've gone back to work. I don't think that's true with all of them, but I think they'll be getting back to work soon. So no, I wouldn't really have any major concerns around it. I don't want to downplay the severity of the coronavirus because it's definitely a really sad thing, and that'd be really tough to get it or for someone to die because of it. But if you actually just look at the numbers, I think at this point there's 200, maybe 250 people that have died, and on the low tens of thousands of people who have gotten the virus. But if you start looking up statistics, it's the common flu kills 50,000 people a winter. There's all these other things that are actually result in way more deaths. So I think it's maybe a little bit easy to kind of blow it out of proportion since it's in the media so much. But so directly answer your question, no, it doesn't concern me.
All right. Let's see here. Looks like trying to find more questions. We're running out of questions here.
Max said, I sent you a screenshot. Would you take a look at it? Yes. All right, so he sent me a screenshot of the extension. The price is a pretty good price point. On average, probably around 20 bucks. The top, let's say like 10 sellers, or the top like 20 sellers are all selling hundreds, if not low thousands per month, which is great. The reviews are pretty good. Like the top seller, they are selling over 500 per month. They only have 30 reviews. Let's see, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one selling 350 a month. They only have 9 reviews. So like overall, it looks like a pretty strong like demand competition differential. But like I always say, you know, I don't have complete view into everything about the product. So I can't say, you know, for sure whether you should go for this or not, but like from the numbers, it looks like it could be a good opportunity.
Looks like we don't have any more questions.
Max actually has one more at the bottom here.
Oh.
If I cannot find a supplier on Alibaba with a similar product listing, should I go ahead and reach out to any factory which could potentially create the product? Yeah, that's usually the next best way to go about it, is to reach out to factories that make a very similar product and start to ask them. The other thing you can do is Alibaba's request, what is it? Request for proposal. Is that what the thing's called, Rolando?
Yeah, the RFQ.
Yeah. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah. So with that, basically you're putting your information out there for suppliers to come and seek you out versus you contacting manufacturers, suppliers directly. They're pretty effective, and you will definitely get a lot of responses. I've used them, and it is a neat tool, but once again, you're gonna have to still do your vetting on the manufacturer, right? Because here, you know, you're gonna put your description of what your product is. What I like to do is I like to add images and just kind of like show them what I'm looking for specifically. Be as thorough as far as details, your dimensions, maybe, you know, what type of packaging you would like for it. Just be as detailed as possible. And then once you submit that, different suppliers are just going to start contacting you, and it's pretty effective. So I would use it. Like I said, you're still going to have to do your vetting. That's all. Just keep that in mind.
I'll just show you where it's at. If you go to Alibaba under services, it's right here, submit RFQ. So if you click that, you'll see it asks for a number of different pieces of information. And yeah, you can submit this, and factories will, like Rolando was just saying, the factories will give you quotes.
You're going to be swarmed with quotes, some of them not even related to your product. So just you're going to get a lot of emails. Just be mindful of that.
Kadeen said, what are some good websites to search for non-Chinese manufacturers? We actually talked about this in the beginning of today's Q&A. Rolando mentioned ThomasNet. Global Sources is kind of like another Alibaba. So there's some factories are not in China, but there's a lot that are in China. And the other best place is the Jungle Scott Supplier Database. And I showed this earlier, but I'll show it again real quick. If you go to Supplier Database and you make a search, there's right here country of origin. So you could deselect China, hit search, and now it'll filter all the factories that are not in China.
All right. Rob asks, if you open the FBB group to more members, will we be able to attend their coaching calls if we want?
Good question. We haven't really discussed that yet, but in general, we lead to providing more value and try to, you know, kind of like exceed your expectations. So I think that's probably going to be an opportunity for you, Rob. But yeah, we need to kind of discuss and figure out what we're doing with it. But like we've mentioned many times, it's like our goal here to help you have a successful business. So, you know, kind of anything we can do to help you down that route, we're going to try to do.
definitely you'll have access to any video updates or anything like that, if should that be the case. All right, Max asked, found the awesome product, and looks like not only for me. Found it. Every day I can see a few new listings. The problem is that sea shipping for my product will take 1 to 2 months. For the time, competition will increase a lot. Should I split and send some portion of it with the high price by air in order to be the first? I would say if you can afford to have something airship just a portion of your shipment, then by all means you could do that. But definitely, I wouldn't worry so much about the competition and that the month or two that go by that it's just going to get more competitive and difficult to sell. I would just more focus on your bottom line, on how can you maximize your bottom line, and that by saving a little bit by shipping via sea versus air shipment, that definitely will help your bottom line.
All right. Rob asks, what's next for Jungle Scout? I mean, a lot's coming up. Like a lot of improvements to the product, a whole bunch of other cool stuff. I would like to know from you, Rob, like what would you like to see in Jungle Scout, or what kind of improvements would you like to see in Jungle Scout? Because yeah, at this point, we have a big team, can make lots of progress all the time. We just have to choose the most exciting and most important things to work on.
All right. Looks like Ari's asking, I plan to sell in the USA. If the supplier I found in Alibaba doesn't have North America as listed in the main market under their profile in Alibaba, would you still consider this supplier? That does present a big challenge, because if the United States, if they don't have that supply chain, it might be difficult to work with this supplier. But in the end, as long as they're making some sense, like they've worked, what you have to ask is just ask the questions, right? Like, have you worked with someone that's sold on Amazon? Have you, in the past, have you worked for, have you shipped your supplies to the United States? But yeah, I would say it's not a red flag in particular, but just dig a little deeper, ask more questions, find out more about the supplier, and determine, then it becomes like a judgment call as to whether or not you want to proceed with them.
The only thing I'll add to that, to Rolando's response there, is that if their main markets are typically Africa and the Middle East or Southeast Asia, like kind of like those three, it's usually more common for those products to be of a little bit lower quality, because the quality standards in those regions of the world are typically different than what they are, say, in North America or Europe or Japan. So just kind of keep that in mind and make sure you're really vetting for quality, because yeah, I have seen that a number of times.
Yeah, good call.
All right. Well, we're out of questions in the chat box, and it's about the top of the hour. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Rolando, thank you very much for all of your help. I've really enjoyed this Q&A, as I always do. It's always a blast chatting with all of you, and we will see you next week for the next Q&A.
Bye, guys. Keep crushing it.
See ya.